Ah, nice. Okay. Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? I'm gonna say if I'm too quiet or too loud. Hopefully this works. Or too loud. Hopefully this works. Or too loud. Okay. Too loud. Okay. See if I can. See if that makes a difference. Just say. Hopefully that's made it a bit quieter. Maybe. Well, anyway, tell me, tell me if I'm too loud or too quiet. But welcome to the people who are watching the season 15 teams and teammates. There's no predictions. I hate to break it to you, but yeah, hopefully your ears aren't bleeding from me being too loud. But I'll be running you through the teams and teammates for all the tiers across FRL. I think that while I'm clicking, it might be a bit loud, but hopefully it will be interesting to see everyone's reactions to the tiers and see if they got the teams and teammates they wanted. I think everyone will get the teammates they want for sure, but there's a lot of competitions, a few shocks for who got obviously which team. But hopefully this works. If I'm a little bit of a noob to this because I haven't done a stream in a while, but here we go. Hopefully you can see this alright. As I put on F4, as just following the stream, it should update. But just while I wait for the stream to catch up, the F4 lineup, obviously a few surprises in there. As here we go. Okay, it's way too lopsided. Maybe that will make it a lot better. Does that work? That should work. So yeah, there you go. There is the F4 teams and drivers and teammates and everything alike. There is one main shock, and everyone's probably thinking, is it? Oh, Stephen's no longer in a Ferrari for the second season in his FRL F4 career. He's actually not in a Ferrari. He's now in the Alfa Romeo. It looks very nice graphics by Jensen and a very nice thumbnail in the intro by VIP. So thank you. But yeah, it's a very exciting lineup. I think the favourites probably for the title will probably be the Haas lineup of JB and Brookie. Both very well, JB's very consistent. Brookie's he's quite a quick man, but he just cannot seem to keep it on a track. But he said he's going for the title next season, so that'll be exciting. As for the other drivers, just seeing Parrott say the Alpine Dream Team, Dan Messi and Mertens, both very quick drivers. Dan Messi in pre-season, he might have been sandbagging in F3, but he's been moved down to F4. And looking at the grid, he's the only driver to move down to F4, from pre-season. And he was, I think, at one point in F4, he might have won a race, or he was definitely fighting for wins. Mertens, we know, I think in Britain, he spun on a final lap, but we know he's got pace as well. Another few drivers as well. Cryptic in a Red Bull and Hamilton McCann, they're also going to be interesting to watch. See if Cryptic can finally find a bit of consistency like he did in pre-season. Hamilton, not seen much of him, so still a bit of an unknown. Humanoid as well, joining O'Stephen in the Alfa Romeo. He beat O'Stephen in France pre-season, which ended early, the stream I did, which was a shame because Humanoid actually got technically his first win, but it was pre-season. As for the other lineups, you got Highlander and Janzu. Janzu only saw a bit of him in pre-season. The Highlander, we know Highlander's generally midfield, but for Ferrari, maybe he'll find a little bit of a spark to maybe go a bit faster. Senna and Janjan. Senna back in FRL. I think he took a break and might have got kicked. I'm not too sure. Janjan, he also, I think, is around midfield or further back of the pack. But it's quite a close grid. You got Your Idea as well. He's probably going to be one of the drivers who's going to be looking on to push on for a title. He's definitely got a one-lap place. Same as Lewis KRFC. Just both of them in the race do seem to come a cropper to spins. Cameron Barber and Louis Yu, they're both quite quick drivers when they want to be. But obviously, I think Cameron Barber, he's new to wheels, so he'll be a bit slow. Louis Yu, he is a driver who, once again, don't really know too much about. I think he's done a couple races, been midfield, nothing too special. But the new driver on the grid is, well, not on the grid, but in the reserves as well, is Gisty67, who's also, a reserve for the F4. And Sepp Spelt as well, he's also going to be in a reserve list, second in a reserve list, not got too many reserves for F4. But I think that's enough talking about F4, and we'll move on to F3, as F3 is also quite an exciting grid. As once again it is out of place, so I'll just quickly move it. If I can drag it, nice. I thought I planned to do these earlier and got them in a nice position, but they seem to have reset themselves, which is a bit annoying. But anyway, that is the F3 grid. And there you go, it's updated. So, F3, very exciting grid. I think F3 is always one of the most exciting tiers, in my opinion, because it's so close to grid. I think F4, generally speaking, is closer than last season, but not... It's still quite spread out. You know, the slowest guy in F4, there's no limit to how slow you can be in F4, whereas in F3, obviously, there is a limit. So, F3, very close grids, and a lot of familiar faces from F4. You got Pippo from F4, who won the title last season. You got Evil Zook, who was one of his challengers, and he obviously is teaming up with VIP GTA Gamer. They're both from F4. And Tex Rex, he wasn't high in the championship, but he did in pre-season and his TTs, and towards the end of the season, he did show a bit of pace, and in pre-season in F3. Ignelis, he's also from F4, so just a few, and Kostya as well. Can't forget about Kostya, who finished in the end second in the championship. Tice was fourth, he's still in F4. So quite a few F4 drivers in this grid, and obviously a lot of guys who have been in F3 for multiple seasons. You've got in the Red Bull, starting with the Red Bull, you've got Sadio Mane and Ruben, two drivers who I believe are both Belgian. I might be wrong there. But they got the team they wanted, they got Red Bull, and I mean, Sadio and Ruben, last season, I think they were fighting for the constructors, but they kind of fell out of it. Ruben had a really, I think he won 3 races in a row. He won Hungary, I think, for sure, and France. And out of nowhere, he started winning races. So if that wasn't maybe someone playing on his account, he's very, very quick when he wants to be. But then he had 4 DNFs towards the end of the season. So Ruben also is one to definitely crash a lot if he doesn't really merge well with the track. And Sadio Mano, he's probably going to be one of the guys going for the title as usual. I mean, he's really on this game and the last one found a bit of form, unlike previous games. He was already banned from FRL a couple seasons back, but since coming back, he's been very clean compared to his old self. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how close he can get to a title, or maybe win a title. There's a couple of drivers who have won titles on this grid or championships. Bull Boy won obviously 3 titles in F1. He's a champion. Michael Van Dongen won F3 once upon a time. I think it was season 3. And obviously VIP GTA Gamer last 2 seasons ago. Or was it last season? No, it was 2 seasons ago. He won FRL F4. So he's obviously second season in F4. He's going to be second season in F3. He's going to be looking to get to be, I think, the only driver to win F4 and F3. Not massive accolade, but you know, if he can do it, it'd be quite nice for him. So looking at the drivers around the grid, obviously you've got Machiel and Tex-Rex as well. Machiel seems to be probably top of the midfield, and Tex-Rex obviously fresh from F4. I don't expect him to go for the title. I think he'd be further down in the midfield. And then Mercedes moving bottom left. You got Frankie Monti. He was originally in F4 but has been moved up to F3, and he's teaming up with his good friend Kostya. Both these guys I don't think are the pinnacle of F3, but if they can both get their races together and have a very clean and perfect race in Mercedes style, I think they can be picking up a lot of points. And there's a lot of carnage in F3, so I don't think I think there's a good chance that they'll be able to get through the carnage, obviously. And then moving on to the Aston Martin pairing of Rackler and Michael Van Dongen. They've been teammates for ages. They were F4 for pre-season and dominated, so now they're back in F3. And I don't think they'll dominate. They used to, in F3, be one of the front runners, and I think they won a Constructors, or always up there in the Constructors. But this time in Aston Martin, I don't see them probably taking a Constructors title, because there's another strong team pairing. I'm going to skip all the way to the bottom with Michael F1 and Cassidy, who obviously, once again, like Michael Van Dongen and Rackler, been about FRL quite a while. And in the Haas, I don't think they'll run near the back at all. I think Michael F1 and Cassidy, a couple of seasons back in Racing Point, when FRL OC was still going, they were also right at the front there, but they kind of fade away towards the end of the season. So if they can, throughout the whole season, keep up what they're capable of, for sure they'll win the Constructors. And I think both of them can definitely gun for the driver's title. I'd probably say Michael F1 slightly quicker than Cassidy, but you know, it's all depending on your opinion. And then we'll move slightly left onto the Alpine pairing of both FRL, Pippo and Sen. Sen, obviously, I think last season he was F3. There was a lot of drivers who were kind of fighting for wins, but he was one of them. And Pippo's teammate obviously won the F4 title. He won it fairly comfortably towards the end. It got a bit anticlimactic, with Evil Zook having a tough couple of races, falling out of it. Kostya was a bit too little too late to take the title from Pippo. So Pippo, they got a champion at Alpine, which, you know, if they want to win a Constructors, that'll help them probably, because Pippo's won a championship in FRL before. And Sen, maybe, I think you'd expect Sen to probably outscore Pippo, but both of them are going to be very closely matched. And then probably the least well-known pairing, no disrespect to them, the Alfa Romeo team pairing of Dakes and Ignelis, both very new to FRL. Dakes, I believe he got a second in the penultimate or last race of the season in F3. And as for Ellis, he also came on strong last couple of races in F4. So both of them, I think, I don't think they'll probably be finishing many races, but hopefully we'll see they, in an F3 grid that's very competitive, they're going to need to be on their A game to score points, let alone get podiums. So interesting obviously to see how they do. As for McLaren, as I already touched on before, you got VIPG Chigami, who won the F4 title 2 seasons ago, and you got Evil Zook, who I don't think he was actually runner-up. It was obviously Kostya who was runner-up. He was third in the F4 title, but they're definitely going to be probably second or third favourites for the constructors. Both very strong drivers. It's just they're both new to F3, so it's F3 is obviously completely different to F4. In F4, if you want to make an extra pit stop and work your way through the field, it's fairly easy. In F3, all the drivers are so closely matched, it's very difficult to do so. So completely different F3, so interesting to see how they get along. As for the last two pairings, we got not McLaren, just said McLaren. We got Ferrari with Berra and Alpha King. I think Berra obviously rejoining FRL, which is nice to see another NSX name among the tiers. He's going to be with Alpha King. Alpha King, he won a couple of races in F4 when he initially came to FRL. He got moved up to F3, and then the first half of the season he attended, then the rest he didn't. So hopefully he will be able to attend. Otherwise, obviously his seat will go to the other three reserves or Glow Stick Horizons things. But Alpha King, if he does attend, I think he'll definitely be fighting up there for podiums. And then the last pairing of Bullboy and Bobby. Bullboy, obviously, as we know, very consistent. Pace, not there to win a title because he just simply doesn't practice enough. But he could have been in the scrap for the title last season, or maybe it was the one before. He had a few arguments, I think, meaning he got banned for a couple of races. So Bullboy's off-track stubbornness usually can be the undoing of him maybe being in a championship fight, or at least last season it was. But he's been teamed up with Bobby. Bobby, obviously, he used to be known as Imposter. Last season, I believe, he got a season ban, but he's here to return. I've seen him in pre-season and raced with him, obviously, myself, and he seems to be a lot cleaner this time. But he's fast. I think he's taking off some of his assists, and that's same to be mentioned with VIP. So hopefully he'll be able to adapt well and be another driver maybe to fight near the front. And without further ado, as we've got 16 people watching, we will move on to the F2 tier. As once again, it is completely out of position, so I'm going to have to readjust it. Oh, there we go. Piece of cake. And as the stream catches up, we see F2 grid, myself in it, I can say it's maybe I think some parts of the F2 grid look very, very exciting, and other parts maybe a little bit less so exciting, but it's a very, I think there's a lot of broad range of F2 pace in here. You've got F1.5 paces, you could call it, obviously in the likes of Zero, who came down from F1, Ryan, who's probably F1 pace on his best tracks, and then as well you got drivers like Pepin, who was originally placed in F1 but now moved down to F2. Nick as well, he's right at the top of F2 pace there. So I mean, in terms of drivers fighting for the F2 title, you could pick out at least half a dozen. I think the drivers who, to make it easy, won't be in a tight is Will. We just simply don't know enough about him. Pace or F1 Rogers, he's won F2 before. I think it was about 3 seasons back when it was against drivers who are now F3. So I don't think he's going to be able to win a title this season, and his attendance is probably not good enough. but I'd probably rule him out. Baz, he struggled on this game, and he does struggle with keeping it on a track. I think he might not be in for a title shout. Arno, I don't know really where he was last season in F2. He just wasn't really getting podiums or anywhere near where he's been before, because he used to be in obviously F3, and I think he got moved up to F2 because he's just too quick for F3. And then Smolly as well, I'd rule him out for a title. I think he's once again someone we don't know enough about. And yeah, there's a lot of drivers here who are inconsistent, I'd say, and a lot who are definitely championship material. You got if we start off with the Red Bull as Watermelon and Evo. Obviously, Watermelon in F2, he's been there a while now, and he's very quick. Obviously, I think he could definitely be up there fighting for the title. Evo as well. Evo and Watermelon, I think they're very good mates, so they could for sure charge for a constructors battle. And then in terms of the sister team, you got Nick and Pepin, and then at Mercedes you got Bulo and Yuri. Just quickly run through the grid. Niels and Scar at Aston Martin. In Ferrari you got Pelly and Edzak. Williams, Will and Pace for F1 Rogers. And then at McLaren it's Ryan and myself, Bunty. Alfa Romeo is Arno and Baz, and Alpine, Zero, Smolly, and Haas, Mentos and Lars. But do you know what? We'll start back to front. In terms of Haas, I think Mentos and Lars are quite an interesting pairing. Lars is new to FRL. He's also, or used to be called SXT Aero. He sadly didn't appear to any of the pre-season races. So if he is F1 pace, so be it. But Mentos, obviously part of QRT as well. Quite a few QRT drivers on this grid. But both of them part of the same esports team. And both of them probably could be argued to be F1. Mentos was F1 last season and struggled really to gain enough points to kind of be up there in the top 10 championship standings. So I think those two, now they're in F2, both of them, I think they can definitely, rather than fighting for points, they'll be fighting probably for the odd podium, or maybe consistently podiums, who knows. So that'll be an interesting pairing. In terms of Alpine, you got Zero, who's still looking for his next win. Obviously his last win was, I think, in 2019. It was quite a while ago, and he's alongside Smolly, who we don't really know enough about. But if Smolly's maybe somehow got some massive amount of pace, maybe those two could be a very strong team in F2, strong pairing. And then moving on to Alfa Romeo, obviously you got Arno and Baz. Arno, I think he could definitely be fighting top of the midfield if he gets his game together. And as for Baz, you never know. His one-lap pace is really, really special. But then, just in the race, it always seems to be a spin or an incident with someone else. So if he can match his quali pace with his race pace, I think Baz could be a championship contender. But the problem is, it doesn't usually happen for Baz. As for McLaren, obviously myself and Ryan, I won't be biased at all. But I think both of us from F1 is going to be interesting to see how we do. I think we're probably, being as humble as possible, going to be maybe a midfield team. We're both still getting used to no assist and myself being wheel. But yeah, enough about us. Obviously, I don't think I mentioned anything about Ferrari. Pelly and Edzak. Pelly, he's been in F2 for goodness knows how long, but at some point he's going to need to fight for a title, and I think maybe it could be the one. I think in last season he was starting to get some good results, which was a bit surprising, because at the start of the season he was a bit underwhelming. And as for Edzak, once again he's in the Ferrari team, suiting quite nicely. Obviously Pelly from Alpine moving to Ferrari, but the pairing, you got Edzak who's very consistent and Pelly who's maybe slightly inconsistent. But I think it will be probably another midfield pairing. But the grid's so close, it's very tough to be able to put a tag on anyone to say where they'll be. Probably hence, I didn't have time, but even if I did do predictions, I'm sure I'd be absolutely wrong. And then Williams, obviously already said, don't know enough about him, and Pace obviously won a championship. There's, if I count, 3 champions on this grid, being Evo, Bulow, and F1 Rodders or Pace. So a few champions to possibly sway the championship. But I mean, if Pace was his old self when he won that championship, he could definitely go for it again, because he's against some drivers who, on his best day, I think he could beat. But you know, we haven't seen enough of Pace recently to kind of be able to say where he'd slot in. And then for Mercedes, a pairing of Bulow, who won F3, I believe it was 2 seasons ago, and Yuri, who last season in F3 was fighting for wins. I think he got maybe 1 win, but obviously in terms of the championship fight, I don't think he was close enough, just because F3 is so crowded. You have one mistake and you fall right down no order. But then I think there'll be a decent pairing Mercedes. They could go for the title. I think Yuri and Bulow, if they both really show up to every race, especially early on, get their kind of teeth into the championship, they can definitely be championship contenders. And then as for Aston Martin, Niels and Scar, both are obviously very good mates. I think if Scar and Niels can find a bit of consistency, that consistency is the word probably I've used more than 100 times this stream or broadcast, but I think a lot of drivers, to be Champions Rossi, you gotta be that consistent, and Scar wasn't super consistent, but it was obviously tough to be, because last season he was getting involved in a lot of incidents, not because he was causing them, but usually because obviously he was the victim of a lot of incidents. As for Niels, I think he's taken off a couple of assists this game, but just spinning. I know for Hungary, I think he was in a decent position last season in F3, and so was Scar in F3 last season as well, if you couldn't tell with all the incidents, as F3 obviously probably the tier that racks up the most incidents. But I mean, if they can both put in a decent showing early on obviously in the season, and obviously some tracks which I think Scar and Niels might be decent at, then who knows, maybe they can be top of the midfield, maybe even pushing on for a championship fight. But I think as F3 drivers next season, they might be quite humble and just settle for a midfield slot, maybe 5th or 4th in the championship. And then you got the 2, or probably Nick and Pepin, you might argue would be the favourites for the title. I think the Haas lineup as well could be another championship contender, but Nick and Pepin I'd probably say are the favourites. Pepin obviously moving down from F1, and Nick last season finished 2nd in the championship to flex. Nick, just very, very quick driver in the AlphaTauri. I think he'll be probably, if he can just keep getting obviously the podiums, because I'm not really too sure what went wrong from last season in F2. I just don't think he was picking up the points that Flex was, and he wasn't kind of probably taking the advantages of the weak grid last season in F2, as obviously this season you got a lot of F1 drivers coming down, a lot of very quick F3 drivers coming up, so the tier is quite different compared to last season. And then for the Red Bull team, the last team coming on to them, Watermelon and Evo won F3 last season, and he's definitely won many races in FRL. Watermelon less so. He struggles to win races, Watermelon, but he's for sure always there or thereabouts at the top of the grid. But I think they'll definitely be, just like in real life, probably at least top 3 in the championship. And then as a reserve, you got David, who's also a champion, but he's obviously not on the grid. But he decides to be reserved, but now apparently he can be full-time, so he maybe might have a championship fight if he gets into a full-time seat as soon as possible. You got Marine from F1. He's going to be a bit of an unknown, Marine, because we put him in F2, but on other leagues and generally his pace, any QRT guy is definitely up there or thereabouts with F1 pace. He could be, as a reserve, getting podiums, maybe a win, so who knows. And then Mike, don't have a clue about him. Not really, didn't appear in any of the pre-seasons, so probably lucky to even get on reserves list. But without further ado, we'll move on to the F1 grid. As once again, just going to have to move this. To make it a bit cleaner. Okay. Hopefully it updates. But yeah, the F1 grid is looking quite nice. There's a lot of fast drivers who are, you could see them quite often being like top 10 on a even time trial leaderboards. Starting off with top right, NSR Thomas. I don't think many people have heard of him. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe he's very well known, but Thomas, his TTs when we were placing him were probably, I think they were top 5 at least. They were very decent, and Thomas, obviously, very fast driver. As for his teammate Tayon Dekip, if that's how you pronounce it, probably butchered that. He's also a driver who he actually did turn up to a lot of the pre-seasons. Thomas sadly didn't, but he seems to be F1 pace, but nothing special. I think he's part of Ecos. Little fun fact about him, but yeah. He's new to FRL, so we don't know loads about him. And then in terms of AlphaTauri, we've got the two NSX pairings of Vaporize and Unseen. Both returning back to FRL, which is quite nice to see. But Unseen, a 1 in the F1 and F2 pre-season, which is pretty impressive. So he definitely solidified his spot in F1. And his teammate Vaporizer, we know, he used to obviously seal many constructors titles with the man at the top of Aston Martin, and he's now in the AlphaTauri, and he's obviously a very quick driver. And then as for Mercedes, a very quick pairing of Stephen Ocean, Justbrand. Stephen, last season, he was definitely right at the top there, pushing Montana in a lot of races. I don't think he started off till middle of the season or late in the season. So if he was starting there at his very best at the start, I think he could have definitely pushed Montana. But in the end, that was Jensen, who's now dropped off the grid. And then you got Justbrand as well, who just another one of these drivers who can, I mean, all of them can, or most of them can fight for a win. But I think Justbrand definitely one of them who's going to be securing a couple podiums across the season. Obviously got 12 races, so if I had to guess, maybe he might get 2 or so podiums. But he was lurking with F2, being placed in F2, but obviously his pace from last season F1 was very strong. Then in the Aston Martins, you got Montana and Rocco, who are definitely going to be probably the championship favourites. I mean, quite definitely championship favourites. Montana, who obviously won last season, and if Montana wins this season, I think he's already the undisputed kind of GOAT of FRL, if you like. But if he wins the championship in season 15, then he's won 4 titles in F1 and 1 in F2, which would make him clear of Bullboy and Jensen, who are both on 3 titles, I think. Jensen might be on 2. I'm not too sure. But if Montana wins the title this season, I think he's gone clear in FRL as the best driver we've ever seen. In terms of Rocco, he's going back to his old username after joining. I think it was QVR, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong in that. But Rocco, obviously, he hasn't won a championship. He sadly doesn't win many races, but he's another driver who's very fast. We know his F1 pace. He's going to be picking up the points, making sure that Aston Martin seals the title as easily as possible. So Rocco for sure will be helping Montana in every way possible with slipstreaming quali, and then in the race letting him through and holding up the pack, which we saw, I think, when they were teammates very late on, because Rocco was able to switch in for Montana's teammates, and Rocco obviously was doing team tactics in Abu Dhabi, so they both work very well together, both in League of Europe as well, so they know each other very well. So that'll be definitely the pairing to be favourites for the Constructors' Championship. As for Dundee and Scorenzi in the Ferrari, Dundee F2 last season, he was fighting for the F2 title. I mean, famously in F2 Hungary, he ran up to the line with Flex, and Flex just about got him. As for Scorenzi, he was very fast in pre-season. He won the Bahrain race, I believe. Oh, it was him and a Hawk dueling it out, and he was right up there. He definitely won in Spain. He pulled a massive gap, but that obviously race I think was plagued with a few disconnect issues. So that's I think that would be win the championship in F2, but the Ferrari pairing in F1, I'm not too sure. I don't think they will be able to probably be right at the front. I can see them maybe more settling towards the midfield, but two drivers who are very quick naturally. I mean, you have to be quick obviously to be in this F1 grid. And then you got Lou and T-Hawk, or FRL Hawk as he's now called. This pairing's unexpected from my side, but in the Williams, T-Hawk on this game has found a lot of pace out of nowhere, and Lou obviously, as usual, he's right up there at the top of any league he competes in, but especially FRL, he's always pushing Montana. Obviously Montana most of the time coming out on top, but Lou and Hawk, they'll be wanting to definitely give the fight up to Aston Martin. So I do think it'll be Aston Martin versus Williams for the Constructors, but there's another team we're going to come up to soon who also could be very good. I mean, there's a couple teams as I look down, but yeah, Williams, as Parrot says in the comments, very good duo. And then moving on to double LFR pairing at McLaren, where you've got Flex and Yarrow. Yarrow last season, being part of LFR, he used to be part of FAC, who I don't have a clue who they are, but Yarrow was definitely top of the midfield. And it's very tough to break through the top of the midfield to the very top of FRL F1 because you've got to be an absolute monster on the game. But Yarrow was picking up decent points in FRL F1. He's back to do it again. He's obviously with Flex. And, I mean, Flex, he won the championship in F2 last season. Seeing how he gets on in F1, I think will be extremely interesting because there's a lot of drivers who are from F2 who do get pushed up to F1, but Flex is obviously champion. The last champion we had before Flex was David, who didn't do that well in F1. So if Flex can do better than David did in F1, then he'll definitely be probably happy with that, because going from F2 to F1 is a massive jump. And then for Alfa Romeo, you've got Medtc and Emily Hannes. Hannes is new, but absolutely rapid, as you'd expect by any new driver being smacked into F1. And then Medtc is a driver who's, once again, just like Hawk, he's found a lot of pace on this game, it seems. I heard he did I know he's done a 9.1 in Monaco, 3/10 off Jarno Otmir, which is not too bad at all. He has the esports challenges as well. But recently in FRL, he hasn't been quite what he used to be. Obviously, he won a championship, so he's a champion like Flex in McLaren. So I think Medtc and Hannes didn't choose to be teammates. I probably didn't choose to get Alfa Romeo. But that'll be an interesting team to follow throughout the season. See if they underperform or overperform. Because I think they'll be probably third or fourth spots in FRL F1 Constructors. And then you've got Alpine, who have got a very fast duo of Marco and Yul Melma. And Marco, he was in the F2 France pre-season, or F2 and F1, because they merged in France pre-season. And he said, I remember a purple first sector, but generally he seems very, very quick. And same goes for Yul Melma. Yul Melma obviously competing in League of Europe as well, and I know for sure that he's right at the top there, just a little bit behind Montana. So now both of them coming into FRL. I think Marco might have done a couple races before, but Yul Melmat's completely fresh. Seeing how Yul Melmat gets along will be interesting. I think if this tier wasn't so stacked, I think you'd say Yul Melmat would easily be running off with the championship. But given you got the likes of Thomas, Montana, Lou, Stephen Osh, Medtc, Hannes, I think Yul Melmat's going to have a very tough job to bring home any championship. But with Marco, it's a very quick pairing, but just going to be seeing how they get along this season will be very interesting, because obviously we don't know a whole lot about them in FRL. And then the last pairing of Macho and Kazizel being in FRL as long as you can remember, and I believe he won an F2 title. As for Macho, obviously another NSX driver on this grid. There is a whopping 4. He's, as usual, very quick. He's, I think, PSGL F4. He's going to be pushing Kazizel on. I don't think I think his attendance for Kazizel will let him down, because last season Kazizel could have easily fought for the title, but I just don't think making all the he didn't make enough races probably to be right up there. And then obviously for Macho last season was really disappointing. I think him and MedTC could have done a lot better, but just it seemed as though the pace or maybe the motivation for Macho wasn't there. But this season he's back at it, and I'm sure he's going to definitely take the fight onto his NSX counterparts. It will be interesting to see how he does against Vaporizer, Unseen and Montana. I'd imagine Macho would be top 2 in the NSX fight, if you like. But yeah, the Haas pairing also looking very strong, but still Aston Martin I put down for constructors' favourites. And then you got the reserves list as well, where you got High Speed Rick, Misapala, Bombastic, Marnix and Keko's reserves. All of them, once again, fairly new. A lot of LFR guys in QRT and FRL these days. Misapala, I think, got 4th in Belgium. His podium got stole from none other than Zero, so he's also fairly quick. And before we wrap this up with this fairly quick stream, I've been having to waffle as much as possible. There is, as I get it up, there is all the tiers put together, and hopefully it just comes up on updates on stream. But there's all the tiers put together, and as you can see, you got the champions on last game, obviously all being moved up a tier. So the F2 champion moving to F1, the F3 to F2, and the F4 to F1. You can see we got a lot of new drivers in F1, a lot of very quick drivers in F1, and we got a couple new in F2, not so many down the bottom tiers. We got quite a few drivers who've been moved up, as you can see by the orange, in the F3 and F4 being switched around. Same with F1 and F2, a lot coming up to F2 and a lot moving down. So I think F2 is the tier with the least amount of original drivers, unlike F4 and F3. But yeah, I think as I'll move to the very last image which we came out on, if I can get it up, my bad. I don't know where these images go to sometimes, but there you go. Season 15 teams and predictions. No predictions this time, but the teams and teammates. I hope everyone who's watching, if they are a driver, got the team they wanted. If you didn't, unlucky. Obviously, we do it randomly. We don't do it championship order or anything. That makes it unfair if you're a new driver in the league. But yeah, hopefully you got your teammate and team which you wanted. Next season, Season 15, starts on Monday if you're F3 or F4, or Tuesday if you're F1 and F2. 15th season of FRL, so been here a while. Well over 4 years by now. Probably pushing on 5 years. So it's nice to see another season tick by. But if I can close the broadcast, without further ado, I will say adios. And I will see you for F4, where I'll be commentating on, and F3 where Mr. T-Hall will be commentating on for the start of the season on FRL Live. So without further ado,